Hey, peace. What's happening, everyone? On our deal with.
Recognize royalty. Recognize royalty. Gotta recognize it. Recognize royalty. Like they ain't got eyes to recognize royalty.
So today I want to talk a little bit about capitalism and what I think is the fundamental difference between capitalism and socialism. Because I think the fundamental difference between the two concepts, I think, is what allows me to appreciate capitalism. And I guess I'll talk about that a little bit more as well, and where that appreciation comes from. So I'm going to do the chat GPT thing and comparing capitalism with socialism. But before I do, I just want to give my own understanding of both systems and how they're different. So in my view, a capitalist system is one in which, people own their means of production. And fundamentally, I guess what that means is if I create a product, or if I have an idea, whatever products I make or ideas that I come up with are fundamentally an extension of myself, and I own them. They are my property, and I can profit off of them because they are my property. If I come up with, even if it's just an idea, that's considered intellectual property, if you will, but it is my property. Whatever I create with my hands or think of, I am allowed to profit off of those things because I own them. They are my property. And that's fundamentally what capitalism is about. Capitalism says, people own their property, and that stuff that people create are their own property. Socialism, on the other hand, says people do not own their property. Neither the things they create with their hands or ideas that they have, all of those things are not owned by the people, they're owned by the community. And those things are for the betterment of the community as a whole. And so people aren't allowed to profit off of them. In socialism, whatever goods you create, whatever ideas you come up with, has to be used for the good of the entire community. So kind of fundamentally, the fundamental question is, and it even comes down to a question of morals as well, whether it's moral for people to gain profit from their property, from the goods they create, from the ideas they come up with, whether it's moral for them to make a profit off of it by selling to other people. Or is the moral thing to look out for the needs of everyone? Whether they came up with those ideas or not, those ideas should be used for the betterment of the entire society, not just for the individual that came up with that idea. And I think there's the idea of just the idea that what's good for the whole of the society is more important than what's good for individuals within that society. And again, I think it comes down to a question of which one we view as being a more moral stance to take. And so I just want to go into ChatGPT and do a little bit of questioning and see what we come up with. And the first question I'm going to ask is, what is capitalism? And it says, capitalism is an economic system in which private individuals or businesses own and control the means of production, such as factories, land, and resources, rather than the state. So rather than the state owning the means of production, individuals own their means of production. Again, the idea is I created this thing, and so I should profit off of it. It is mine. It is my property. It is an extension of myself. And so I should be able to profit off of it. It says in capitalism, goods and services are produced for profit. Prices, production, and distribution are determined mainly by competition in a free market. So goods and services are produced for profit, which I think is what brings in the question of morality. And prices, production, and distribution are determined mainly by competition in a free market. The main aspect to capitalism is that it represents the free market. It's how things run in a free market. It also says property rights are protected, meaning people or companies can own, buy, and sell property or assets. And exactly what property is, there's a lot of things that come into what property really is, and we'll talk about that as well. But that's pretty much what it's saying. Property rights are protected in capitalism, and that's one of the fundamental aspects of capitalism, is that people own their property. Next, it talks about capital. It defines capital as money, tools, and machines, and those things are invested to generate more wealth. So whenever you produce something that you then use to generate more wealth, that thing is considered capital. Other key features include minimal government interference in its pure form, known as laissez-faire capitalism. So laissez-faire capitalism is where you have the least amount of government interference possible. The next key feature is wage labor, where most people sell their labor to earn income. So I guess people's labor, even your labor, I guess in this aspect, is considered your property, and or your body is your property, and you're selling your body or your labor to earn income. Another feature of capitalism is consumer choice, where people are free to buy and sell as they wish. Yeah, and that's fundamentally the idea of a free market. It says in practice, most countries today have mixed economies, combining capitalist markets with some government regulation and public services. And the next thing I want to do is go into exactly just a comparison of capitalism and socialism, and then also the mixed economy and what aspects of each are present in a mixed economy. So here's a clear comparison of capitalism and socialism. Capitalism, in terms of ownership, the means of production, which are factories, land, and tools, are privately owned by individuals or businesses. So the means of production are privately owned. In terms of profit motive, businesses exist to make a profit for owners or shareholders. The profit motive is the leading motive under capitalism. The main thing people want to do under capitalism is make a profit. The next thing is the market system. Prices, wages, and production are determined by supply and demand in the free market. Capitalism is, again, it represents a free market where prices are based on supply and demand. If there's a high supply of goods, then the prices will be low. If there's a low supply, prices get high. So it's just a natural market-produced price, if you will, or the market determines the price. Inequality. It says wealth is unevenly distributed, and success depends on market competition, skills, and luck. And this is, where the moral argument comes in against capitalism, is just how the uneven distribution of wealth. And that's also a natural part of a capitalist system, because people have different types of skills, and you are kind of rewarded for the skill that you use, or your brain power that you use to create a product, and you're rewarded for those things. So there is going to be a natural uneven distribution of wealth in a capitalist society. Next, it talks about government role, which it says is minimal. In capitalism, government role is minimal, and it's mainly to protect property rights, enforce contracts, and ensure market rules. And that's pretty much what the government's role is in the purest form of capitalism, simply to protect people's property rights. So, people can't steal your stuff, and enforce contracts as well. And again, those are the main aspects of capitalism. Now, if we compare them to socialism, it says in terms of ownership, under socialism, the means of production are owned collectively by the state, workers, or communities. So, the tools you create, factories that you build, ideas that you have, all of these things are owned not by you. You don't own the means of production that you create, or the capital that you produce is not owned by you. It is owned by everyone. And the goal of socialism, where the goal of capitalism is the profit motive, the goal of socialism is that the economy is organized to meet everyone's basic needs rather than making profits. And again, that is why people claim that socialism is more moral, or a more moral system than capitalism, because it's looking out for the well-being of everyone rather than just allowing people to profit off of everyone. Planning. In socialism, production and prices are often determined by central planning or democratic decision-making rather than free markets. So there's no free market in socialism. All planning is done centrally, either by the government or by some democratic decision-making body. But that's where the planning takes place. And that's where they decide what's produced and how much to charge for things. Like, they set their prices. This is not done by a free market that determines what's produced and how much you pay for it. This is all done through central planning. Another aspect is equality. As opposed to the inequality of wealth distribution in capitalism, socialism seeks to reduce wealth gaps and promote fairness. Again, everyone's basic needs are being met or are attempted to be met. And lastly, government role. Government role is stronger the government plays a stronger role in directing the economy and redistributing wealth through taxes, public services, etc. The bigger the government, the more collecting of taxes there is, and so the more involved the government gets in the economy. And of course, the more involved the government is in the economy, and the more socialist that government is, or that system is. Yeah, so the key differences, let me just do a quick review of the key differences between capitalism and socialism. Under capitalism, there is private ownership. The first thing is ownership. Ownership is private, and under socialism, ownership is collective or public. The motivation and what motivates them under capitalism is motivated by profits, and socialism is motivated by the social welfare. And, I guess in a way, a socialist state can be viewed as a welfare state. The next thing is the free market. The market role. Under capitalism, there's a free market where people are free to buy and to choose whatever goods they want to sell or buy. There's complete free market that determines what's produced and what the prices are. And in socialism, the market is planned or regulated. What's produced and what prices are, all of those things are planned and regulated. Wealth distribution. Under capitalism, wealth distribution is unequal because, again, people naturally have different skills. And under socialism, it's more equal. Wealth distribution is more equal, or again, that's what it aims for. And government role. In capitalism, the government role is very limited. And in socialism, the government role is very strong, or the government plays the central role. ChatGPT mentions what it's called a real-world note. It says most countries today use a mixed economy, combining capitalist markets with some socialist policies like public health care, education, and social security. For example, the US is capitalist with some social programs, while Nordic countries blend capitalism with strong welfare systems. So again, and just to summarize, I guess the main difference between capitalism and socialism is that a social state or a socialist state can be defined as a welfare state. Under socialism, everyone is on welfare. Yeah, that's fundamentally the difference, is that in capitalism, there's a free market, and socialism is a welfare state where you're not free to do what you want. And really the government goes around and provides everyone with their needs. And so for me, when it comes to the question of morality, for me, the question is, do we want to live in a welfare state, or do we want to live in a free market system? And I would always choose a free market system, simply because people are afforded their freedom to make their own choices. And welfare, I don't think anyone wants to be on welfare. And I don't know if anyone would choose to live in a welfare state. I think the people that are on welfare would rather not be on welfare, or at least most people. And so I think that, for me anyway, I think that capitalism is the better system because it promotes freedom. And I think when people are allowed to own their property, when people are allowed to own their ideas and the things that they make with their hands, and when people are allowed to make a profit off of them, I think that allows them to be even more creative and to come up with even better ideas, and to invest in just generating new things. And I think the opposite is true in a socialist state. I think a socialist state, even though they're looking out for everyone's basic needs, I think it robs people of their creative senses or of their creative impulses, and people aren't necessarily motivated to come up with new ideas. And I think that when you take away that freedom from people, I think you're robbing them of their spirit. I think that the ideas that they come up with come out of their spirit, and I think that a socialist state kind of kills that spirit of innovation. So, and that is how I choose to look at it from a moral standpoint. From a moral standpoint, I think it's more important that people be uplifted spiritually through the concepts of freedom, rather than and their spirits be kind of choked off under a socialist system. Even though socialism tries to, make sure everyone's basic needs are met, I think that the most fundamental and the most basic needs that people have is freedom, and that urge to be free and to own not just themselves, but the things that they create, and to see the things that they create as part of themselves. Again, I think that is a yearning of the spirit, and I think that is what is being sacrificed in order to have everyone else's basic needs met. And so I think capitalism, because of that, I think capitalism is standing on a higher moral ground than socialism. So yeah, that is fundamentally all I wanted to talk about in this video. Was just that, just the fundamental difference between capitalism and socialism, and why capitalism, for me, just makes so much more sense. It's a more natural system, I think, and it more protects the individual spirit, which is very important for human development. So I think I've said enough. If you have any questions or anything to add, please do so in the comment. I read all my comments, so it would be great if we can continue the conversation there. As usual, like the video, hit that subscribe button, and turn on that notification bell. All of that helps. Once again, thanks for stopping by. You done know. It's appreciated, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.
Listen very, very carefully.
Tell the youth them for be strong. You can't tell the youth them for preach wrongs. While you chat it on these lands, just remember every man is equal. Yeah, each one teach one, and our Father God him a the only done. So make we ease and reason. Smoke trees, span the ends, all the deep meds. Take a look at life and don't close your eyes. Sometimes things happen and it's no surprise. And I just, so it go, so it go, so it go, so it go. It's a government, no have no heart, them no care about poor people. Yeah, bigger heads no love people again. Them worse than Hitler them. We see friends now reason again. Vex through whistle a blame. What time it hurt me to see how the face deal with the eagle and them. Regular me see it happen, regular me see it happen. Take a look at life and don't close your eyes. Sometimes things happen and it's no surprise. And I just, so it go, so it go, so it go, so it go. It's a government, no have no heart, them no care about poor people. Social commentary, drop the one your principle, you don't know the global will comment with. Some people life every day it's stress. The high price from JPS, that topic is currently. Jah alone him a go help you. We need food and we no healthy. We a feel the pain, beg you protect we. In a life we have no envy. Take a look at life and don't close your eyes. Sometimes things happen and it's no surprise. rise. And I just, so it go, so it go, so it go, so it go. It's a government, no have no heart, them no care about poor people.